VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. We are 1 month away on the nose from the NFL draft when we will presumably learn the identity of the Vikings' next starting quarterback, if it's not Sam Darnold week 1. I'm here with my new friend, Gage, from Vikings Twitter. How's it going, homeboy?
Hey, it's great to be here, man, and right on the nose. Well, I'm 1 month away. It's been pretty crazy this past month, so I'm really excited to get into that.
Oh, absolutely. It is. It was always going to be one of the most pivotal off seasons of Vikings history. And then when Cousins left 2 weeks ago, that really upped the ante in terms of, if you're going to put a, lay down a foundation and say, hey, this is the time for change. That really happened. And I'm going to pick your brain on all of this off season. But first, how long have you been a Vikings fan, good sir?
All my life. I did when I was in Florida. I did watch Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a couple of years, but majority of my life, even for how much pain they put me through. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here with us. And the first thing I'm going to ask you about, since you talked about the breakneck pace of this offseason, is I don't know anything about whether or not you were a Cousins guy, right in the middle, anti-Cousins. With that said, what was your overall feeling? What is your overall feeling on the Vikings offseason so far? We got about 11 weeks of it in the books.
I'm really happy about it. And with Cousins, I was right in the middle. I hope the best for him. I was hoping he could finally get that stride. But Kirk Cousins was one of those guys that, to me, he just didn't have the passion for it. And you could kind of see that. Or like in the playoffs, like against the Giants. We didn't have the greatest defense, but I feel like a lot of our quarterbacks could have won that game. And after 6 years ago, 1-3, it's just not very good, especially when you're paying the guy like guaranteed money, $80 million, his first contract, and it was like 120 or whatever it was. And to me, it was a great move to move on from him because it was just his time, even if it was someone like Sam Darnold. And I would give it like an A- because Sam Darnold, the only reason I didn't put A+ is Sam Darnold. Now, Sam Darnold isn't the worst choice as people make it out to be, but my choice would have been Ryan Tannehill or Joe Flacco just because of their experience and they have trained other quarterbacks to succeed. And I think they would have been better for uprising the next quarterback, which could be McCarthy or Maya or May.
Yeah, we're gonna chat about that one momentarily. And then outside of Cousins, the emphasis on defense and free agency with Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Greenard, Blake Cashman. Do you like the free agency they've conducted? I'm guessing you like the trade they pulled off 10 days ago. Hit me with it.
Oh, the signings have been wonderful. Like, I was like, why didn't we sign Hunters? And then I looked at Greenard because I had to look into him, and 12.5 sacks, which is like, oh, Hunter at 18. But if you look at it, he's fast, he's young, he's 3 years younger than Hunter, and his contract is much slower than Hunter's. So overall, that is my favorite signing because he's very ferocious. This is what we need. He kind of reminds me of Hunter, but much younger and doesn't have that injury history. So I think it was a great signing.
The thing with Hunter, the way that I understand it, is that the deal they had into him was very similar to what he signed with the Texans. But since they didn't have a decision on the first day of free agency, you couldn't sit around and wait for him because the other guys were going off the board. So let's say the Vikings were like, you know what, we're going to wait for Hunter, hell or high water. You get to Tuesday or Wednesday and he signs with the Texans, you're stuck with 0 starting edge rushers. And that would be an utter catastrophe. And so, Danielle Hunter was one of my guys, and I'll be sad that he's gone, but I understand that you had to do something because otherwise you risked having no starting edge rushers from free agency. And I like to make that a point of clarity. It wasn't necessarily like the screw it, we're done with Hunter, but time was of the essence when you had somebody on the open block like that. Now, you mentioned Drake May and J.J. McCarthy. I'm glad you did that, or at least Drake May, at least for your mentions. And it feels like Vikings fans have dwindled it down to a binary choice between one of those guys. So what I want to know from you foremost is whether it's one of those two or whether it's not. What is your recommendation for the Vikings at quarterback in 1 month?
I would go J.J. McCarthy. And I will say this for one reason, and we've seen it through the NFL. It takes just more than skill. It takes a little bit something deeper, like that passion. Like you see Justin Herbert or Tom Brady. Like Tom Brady played for 20 years, and he played to the point he couldn't no more. And that's what the Vikings need. They've dealt with quarterbacks that have many skills. Tommy Kramer, And then you got Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has a skill, but he never had the passion that you needed to win. And it takes a little bit extra. And J.J. McCarthy, to me, is a winner. He's won under Jim Harbaugh. And with our team, and Colin Cowherd mentioned this, any quarterback goes to the Vikings is going to have their best chance of success because you got a mastermind head coach at offense. And you got the defense coordinator, Brian Flores. And you got that roster, which is looking like a Super Bowl contender. And to me, J.J. McCarthy, I think he has a highly ceiling. I would say right above Jaden Daniels because he's something else. But to me, the Vikings have to trade. They got to go all in. For me, is the Patriots. That is the best scenario. And J.J. McCarthy has to be the guy.
I'll also mention Colin Cowherd. He's been really bold on the Vikings. He did a top 10 power rankings, and somehow he put the Vikings at number 10 without even knowing who they draft. And usually these power rankings have the Vikings in the bottom 10. So I want to point that out. And this was the guy 2 years ago, Colin Cowherd, that said the Vikings would go 14-3. And that was during the summer. And most people were like, are you nuts? And then they went 13-4. So kudos to him for getting that right. All right. So McCarthy is your recommendation, the guy that you would seek if you were in charge. Is that also your prediction, or do you think something in terms of what you expect on draft night? What do you, when you look up and you see the Minnesota Vikings select, who's it going to be?
If I had to put it on, I would say J.J. McCarthy. Like what you're saying, okay. They did private workouts. Josh McCown went to the pro day. I think they're very interested in them, but they're going to see what happens on draft day because anything could happen. But if J.J. McCarthy is available, I don't see why they wouldn't go with him. Like as a leader, like everyone loves him. And the one thing that really sold me on him, like his pregame, he meditates and listens to Bob Marley. Like that is a guy you want.
Interestingly, on McCarthy, he would probably be a little bit more affordable per the trade package than Drake May. If you believe the draft smoke from over a year now that Drake May is going to be the second overall pick or now the third overall pick, you can probably get McCarthy for a slightly reduced price, which might mean not handing off next year's first rounder as well. So that's one thing to remember for Vikings fans. And then it's really weird. I don't know if you've been following this, Gage. Over the weekend, every team at the top of the draft, except for the Bears, said they're open for business. Like down the line, the general manager, the head coach from each team says, we're going to listen to every trade offer. And usually it's not every single dude in charge of the team that says, hey, pick us, pick us. So it leads me to believe that we went from a week ago thinking, God, who are the Vikings going to be able to trade with, to who wants to trade with the Vikings, because it seems like there's a little competition in the mix. But with let's say we are correct and the Vikings fan, the body politic is correct on the whole, and it's either May or McCarthy. With or without Sam Darnold starting for however long, what are your expectations for 2024? Like wins and losses, the general vibe? Tell me about that.
I think, and this might seem bold, but I think the Vikings are a wild card team that goes 10-7 with Sam Darnold.
Goodness,
and I'll say one reason why is the defense. And you look at the scale of free agency, we built that defense, and you look at what Brian Flores has done even last year, and both of those guys weren't his. And he went top 10, and compared to the year before, 31. So with the guys he wants, I see a defense, I see getting close to top 5. And with the offense we have, as long as JJ resigns to the Vikings, I think Sam Darnold's going to do well. Like I mentioned earlier, with Kevin O'Connell as his head coach and his relationship with Josh McCown, who I'm sure advocated for Sam Darnold to be signed, I think Sam Darnold there has the best opportunity. Because look at the teams he played for, the Jets. At the time, they were nobodies. And same with the Panthers. And he did good for the Panthers at the end of his career there. So I think Sam Darnold could have the best year of his career. Maybe above average. I don't think he'll be as good as Kirk Cousins, but he'll definitely be above average than he has been.
So if you have your recommendation plus your prediction lassoed with J.J. McCarthy, do you believe with that prediction that you just offered, that lofty 10-7, do you think Sam Darnold plays some or all of 2024?
If the Vikings play smart, long as Sam Darnold doesn't throw away the games and he doesn't do as bad as, say, like Josh Dobbs after those couple of games, I think Sam Darnold has to be the full starter. Like, you don't want to put your quarterback in the fire when you don't have to, especially the team we have. We don't need to. So I think JJ or May, whoever it is, I think they should sit a year so they can learn behind. Look at the quarterbacks that have done that. Patrick Mahomes, he sat majority of his rookie year. He didn't play until the last couple of games. So I think you look at that, and also Jordan Love, who's doing well. I think you got to sit at least for a year.
Okay, so that so if I'm understanding this correct, you're a McCarthy guy, but you would actually rather see Darnold start week 1 and gradually ease McCarthy in whenever that may be. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Well, that will be, you wait, whoever it's going to be, May or McCarthy, or if Jaden Daniels, somehow we forgot about him, if he turns out to be the pick, we are going to have a summer-long debate about what to do, because I think we're all going to want the new guy to dazzle at training camp and in the preseason. And I can guarantee you at least half the fan base is going to want that guy to start right away because it worked for CJ Stroud last year. But to your point, there is efficacy in doing it the Packers way or the Chiefs way, where you let the guy cook, you let him marinate on the bench for however many games, and then he takes the baton when either Darnold leaves after a single season, or if the Vikings get to 2-7 or some shit like that, then it might be time to see what he's got. But I can guarantee you, sir, and guarantee viewers, that will be the hottest debate of the summer, because ultimately we all want to see the new guy look good, and it'll be whether or not he's good enough and is trusted to start week 1. I would say I probably agree with you in terms of the prediction. They spent $10 million on Darnold. So I'm going to guess, unless McCarthy, May, Daniels blows the summer out of the water, it's probably going to be Darnold, with the high hopes that he'll have a Baker Mayfield-esque season, that, like he had with the Buccaneers. So that's what I want everybody to look forward to. Is right now we're just so enamored with who's it going to be. Well, we're going to turn the corner soon, and like, how soon can the guy start? That's going to be a ginormous Vikings talker. All right, I got a couple more for you. Which free agent newcomer? I know you talked about Greenard. It's cool if you want to double up, but there are a handful of them. I think there are 14 new signees. A lot of them just depth guys, but which one excites you the most?
I honestly, I go Aaron Jones. Like, I was like shocked overnight. He literally signed the Vikings. And what's funny about that? The Packers like, see, we'll take half your salary, or in his leave, and he left and went to the rival, the Vikings, which I just thought hilarious. But we haven't had a solid running back since Dalvin Cook left, and even he had a bit of a decline towards the end of his year with the Vikings. And I think Aaron Jones is a 1,000-yard rusher. Like, you look at him, the last 4 games he had over 100 yards each game, and that wasn't him being a full-time starter. So I think, as a full-time starter for a Viking, I think he's a 1,000-yard rusher, and it's what we need. Because we haven't had a solid running back. You look at Madison, like, he was a fumbler master. Like, no disrespect to him, but it was just not. It wasn't what we were expecting, what we signed for. So I think having someone more consistent in the backfield is going to help the Vikings a lot.
You are correct that with Dalvin Cook, he really started to fall off in 2022, but it was kind of masked because he had those like 4 huge touchdown runs. And then the Vikings didn't want to be on the hook for his salary, and then he went and flamed out in New York, did a little bit with the Ravens, but unfortunately, I think he hit one of those running back age-related decline walls, and I don't think he's ever going to come back and be as prominent as he was. This is just what happens. And then on Aaron Jones, you are correct. He got unbelievably hot in the season's final month. And, because he was on the Packers, we just kind of turned a blind eye. But now he's a Viking. It seems like there's one dude every offseason that defects from Cheeseland and comes to the Vikings. So you have that big plan for Aaron Jones, and I'm going to guess he'll be the unabashed RB1. What is your scouting report on Ty Chandler? Do you think he gets about 40% of the carries? Are you still high on him, or are you never high at all?
Ty Chandler, I think he'll get some of the carries. I would say, like, if I had to put a number on it, 35, 40%. I think him and Aaron Jones are definitely going to split it, because we got to keep my Aaron Jones isn't as young as he used to be. He's 29 now, and I think they're definitely going to split the carries. I think Aaron Jones takes the lead, though.
And then during the draft, the Vikings are probably guaranteed, I think, to at least keep hold to their fourth rounder, and then they got oodles of fifth, sixth, and sevenths. Do you foresee them spending another morsel of draft capital on a running back, or do you think they wait until next year when Aaron Jones's 1-year contract runs out?
That's tough. I haven't really thought about that, but I'm gonna say they probably would trade up at least in the third round
Mm-hmm.
to grab that running back because they've been from what I've seen, they're definitely looking at running backs in this draft, and I think they signed someone just as like a replacement for Aaron Jones eventually, just because we still don't know really much about Ty Chandler. He's done well, but we
Mm-hmm.
thought the same thing as Madison, so it's better to be safe than sorry. And as Rick Phil once said, these are lottery tickets. So, yeah, but he took it too seriously. They would get like 15, 7th round picks. Like that's too much. But yeah, I think they trade up and get that running back in the third round.
Yep, there are in any draft there are really a couple gems at running back that can be unearthed after round 3 or so, and then if they consider this running back room good because they have 5 guys right now, next year's running back draft class is already supposed to be a little bit better than this year. So there is a way they could wait in theory. I like Braylon Allen this year from Wisconsin. That dude looks pretty sweet to me. I banged the drum for him before Aaron Jones signing. Once they spent a little cash on Aaron Jones, it led me to believe that maybe running back in the draft isn't a priority, but we shall see at running back. All right, a couple more things. We've talked about this with a couple guests. I'm going to put you on the spot and take a second if you need to think about it. What would be the worst case scenario in the first round of the draft for the Vikings? Would it be striking out and not getting a quarterback in the top 5? Would it be waiting until 23 to pick Bo Nix? What would have you disappointed getting off your couch on draft night?
I say buy Bo Nick on the 23rd. Don't get me wrong, Bo Nick, he could have potential, but for the Vikings, if you're going to draft a franchise quarterback, you got to go all in, man. Fuck it. Like, let's say it's like the third or fourth pick, or it could be the Cardinals or the Patriots, or possibly the Commanders. You got to go all in. Even if it's like 4 first-round picks. So a lot of people have been criticizing Quincy for possibly trading up, but I'm like, if this is your franchise guy for the next 20 years, you got to go all in because you can't have any doubts. Like, if you know that's your guy, go after him.
Yeah, I think I think this is the one thing that has galvanized the Vikings fan base, which was necessary after 6 years of Kirk Cousins. No matter you like whether or not you thought he was really good or medium good, the guy was divisive. And I think most are excited by the thought of trading up as long as it's not like an absolute Herschel Walker like trade. I think if you can get away with giving away 2 first rounders and something else to get Drake May, to get JJ McCarthy, I think Vikings fans for these next 5 months will really get behind that. And then it all comes down to the grand verdict. If the guy sucks, of course, the trade was horrible. Even if they have to give up 3 first rounders and more, if the guy turns out to be wonderful, nobody will care about how much he costs. I mean, you can ask the Bills about it. You can ask the Chiefs about it. The trade up cost doesn't matter if the guy turns out to be a stud. And that's the Vikings are ungodly due for a franchise quarterback that they organically draft. I know Cousins was pretty good. I know Culpepper was great for 5.5 years, but it was only 5.5 years. It's really time for the Vikings to hit on a first-round quarterback. All right, the final thing. Here's how I discovered you on Twitter and hence invited you on the program. I think that you had a tweet that the Vikings ultimately commented on where you were chatting about autism, and I think that was in tandem with your podcast. So I want to give you the platform to chat about those topics because we at VikesNow, we want to hear about it.
So I put in a tweet. I was born with autism, got diagnosed at 5. And for those that have autism that may be listening to this podcast, it definitely wasn't rainbows and sunshines. There's a lot of people that, there's awareness. Everyone speaks on autism awareness. There's not much acceptance because everyone looks at it as weird or as like, he needs help and he's kind of a lost cause. And as a kid, when people call you special, they might not mean it in a bad way, but it felt condescending. As a kid, I was like 11. And I heard my teacher say that, I just felt felt very put down. And on top of that, our confidence got lower because people go to job sites We might clean the tables in the cafeterias or go to like clean up trash at Walmart. Like it makes you feel like it's a bother to be there, and you don't have much of a high ceiling because they don't give you very high expectations. So it can create a lot of depression for those with autism. And for me, going through all that, and I went through a severe case of depression, especially during the pandemic. I came strong from that, and I want to bring more acceptance to the autism community because I've met a lot of people with autism, and I want to help them and be the person to bring that. Luckily there's more leaders coming up in the community, but for me, this podcast I'm doing is to spread more acceptance and to maybe help them through my experience because I suffered a lot through that. And some days I know I was going to get through it, but I did, and I kind of want to give maybe those perspectives to them, and hopefully bring them up and give them love and care.
Well, I love that, and I think if it helps for you to be on this podcast, every few weeks, and you want to come on and chat about the Vikings, and then throw those tidbits on, if that helps your mission, I'm all for it. So I want to keep the open pipeline of communication because I think your story is wonderful. Tell me about the podcast. Is this do you have guests on, or do you go solo? How often do you record? If folks want to check that out.
I'm getting more consistent with it, but my ideal is like 4 to 5 days of videos of doing it. So it's gonna be like 4 to 5 videos each week. That's my goal for it. And I do have guests. I do some spiritual talks, spiritually wise, but I do keep it mostly autism. And I have guests on that gives their perspectives, and also I have a couple of people that have autism that come on, kind of speak about their story, and just kind of wait for them to express themselves. So it's called the Soul Gathering Podcast, and it is on YouTube. I don't have any other platforms at the moment.
Okay.
But you can find it on there.
Okay. So Soul Gathering, we got it right here on the StreamYard banner. All right, sir. Well, it was great personally to meet you on video. Do you go to Vikings games at all, or haven't you crossed that frontier yet?
I went last year to the Miami game. That was I believe it was last year. It was pretty awesome. I don't go to Minnesota. It's my goal to go there because I want to check out that stadium.
Yeah.
But this year I plan on going to the Jacksonville Jaguars game when they face the Florida. So I usually go when they face a Florida team or somewhere close there.
Yeah, there's enough Florida teams where that should happen somewhat regular. Maybe once every 2 years or something like that. You'll have to hit my line when you eventually go to. I go to all the home games, and then there's a lot of sweet tailgates and stuff. I could introduce you around. It's a wonderful stadium, as I'm sure you know. All right, sir. This is it. Do you have any closing arguments about the Vikings before we log off on Monday?
JJ McCarthy is a guy.
That's what you got? Yep, you're pounding the table. Hey, there's a lot of that. I don't know if you've watched this show at all before, but Thor Nystrom, he's right there with you. He comes on every 3 weeks on Wednesdays, and his big damn thing is hell or high water, JJ McCarthy. And he's been saying that for months now. So, yeah, you have allies, my friend.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I love you guys that are on the JJ McCarthy train. It's here. Well, we'll be good either way because we're going to quarterback, but we definitely want JJ.
Amen. All right, sir. You let me know. You message me on Twitter or wherever about when you can come back on. Maybe after the draft, we can kind of decompress what's gone on. See if indeed they got McCarthy. But it was nice meeting you, and we'll talk to you next time. All right.
It's great meeting you too, brother, and I'll see you next time.
Yep. Take it easy. Later.